Welcome into the State 48 podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Matthews, bringing you all things AZ. And today we have Abomb, the artist, joining us here today. And I'm sure you've seen his beautiful murals around town. Of course, if you're listening right now, you can't see the shirt that I'm wearing, but it's our collab with him as well. And a new one with the Phoenix Suns. So much to get into. Yes. Thank you so much for joining us here today.
And thank you for having me.
Yeah. We're going to have some fun. But first things first, I like to always start off with a little fun game just to warm you up a little bit. Not that we need to. It feels like we're already like familia over here. Right. But it's going to be a quick one. It's called This or That. So you have to choose, okay?
All right.
Creating art or creating music, which is another art form. But I know you do both.
Music, I would take music.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a whole nother, it's like when you can express yourself through sound opposed to having a visual, it's a whole nother process. And it's just, I've been creating visually for so long. Like it's a stress reliever to create music.
Okay.
Because there's so many aspects that go into it.
So your old group was the Boondocks back in the day.
Back in the 90s. Yeah. Shout out Boondocks. Rest in peace.
Can you give, R.I.P. Can you give us a little preview of one of your songs? Can you rap for us, or is that not?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I'm putting you on the spot.
You're putting me on the spot. It's like, I don't know. I can't cuss, you know, so it's
we can beep.
You have to go to the website for that. I have to do that.
Plug it in. What website?
abombtheartist.com.
There we go. I will be listening to that.
And my YouTube, so it's all there.
Not around my children, though, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, there's actually some positive stuff that we did.
We'll get into that. Okay. AZ, sunrise or sunset?
Sunrise. For the last 6 years, or for the last 4 years, I've been on this project, and we're facing the McDowell Mountains out at Desert Ridge, and we have no obstructions. So it's just, I sit right on the patio where we have our trailer set up, and I get blessed with the sunrise, man. Do some sun gazing and meditate, and bring all the positive energy in. And
so you're up pretty early.
Oh yeah,
Your day starts.
Yeah, I'm there an hour before the sun rises every day.
Oh wow!
No matter what time of year it is.
That's beautiful. Okay, we are in the holiday spirit a little bit. I know you're Hispanic, so I'm going to put you on the spot here because this is a tough question. Menudo or pozole?
Pozole.
Yes.
I'm not a fan of the tripe they put in menudo.
Really?
Yeah, I don't like the texture. I've never liked it. It's like since a kid, my mom made me some, and I was like, "What is this?" She's, "Oh, try it. It's so good." And
I couldn't explain to people what that is usually.
Yeah, you got to chew it too much to get it. And I know.
I love both, but yeah, pozole is bomb. Okay, hip hop and R&B or the oldies and classics? Oldies but goodies.
Oldies but goodies. All day. You never heard a generation speaking about love so much.
That's true.
You know what I mean? The hip hop and R&B is a little bit about love with R&B, but it's the vulgarity and if I'm gonna listen to something in the car with my kids, it's gonna be the oldies.
So what are you listening to
right now? Oh man, I do a lot of audiobooks. I listen to a ton of audiobooks, and when it is the music, it's usually oldies. You know what I mean? But I am a big fan of Duran Jones, like all the new R&B, the new up and coming stuff. Like I just saw Sacred Souls. Okay. So that was awesome.
What about if it's the oldies? If you're teaching your kids some things.
The oldies, I'm a big Brent Woods fan. I like Brent Woods, War, Tierra. I like a lot of that stuff too. Just a lot of big bands with like horn sections and all that stuff, like the Confunctions and everything else. Cool in the Gang. Cool. Yeah. Wow, and we can go on and on.
Cruising in your classic truck on a Sunday afternoon or go into an Arizona Cardinals game on a Sunday afternoon.
It's kind of both the same because I really don't go to football games. I rather watch it on TV because I get so emotional and I don't need that fan experience to where I'm in Cardinal jail next to some Cowboys fan, But
I'm not trying to get in that. They don't want this heat.
Yeah, shout out to my boy Bobby, man, Bobby Anthony. And I'll be cruising on a Sunday afternoon.
Okay. So when you do go to Arizona Cardinals game, are you that guy that like getting kicked out of the section?
No.
You're bringing too much?
If I go to the games, I want to be in a suite or somewhere where I can just have my space. I'm not big on anybody else's emotions.
He wants the hookup then.
Yeah, for real. I want to go sit nice.
That's my dad, though. He born and raised here in Arizona, but he will not go to games. And like working in the sports industry, I'd be like, Dad, do you want to go to this big game? And he's like, I have to watch it at home.
Yeah.
You get too emotional, and then he's just not fun to be around with the teams losing. I'm like, wow, that's insane.
Yeah, throw off my chi when I get an angry opponent fan,
Well, you have such a rich history here in Arizona with your artwork, but break it down for people who don't know who you are and exactly what you do.
Oh man, so I was a graffiti artist in the early 80s. So back in, I was in 7th grade and I used to go walk to the library from probably like 9 miles. I used to walk to the city library and go find books on graffiti because I had a buddy who had moved here from Brooklyn, and he came over and he was telling me about the graffiti, and he had shown me some techniques and stuff that, I was like, wow, what is this? So one day I'm walking on the way and there's a canal, and I saw one of my friends now. Well, he passed away, but he was painting in a canal, and he had a big long piece. It must have been like 15, 20 feet long, and it said positive and it had a little character, but it was like the old school graffiti you've seen on the trains back in New York. And it was just, oh man, that was it. So I just was researching and working on techniques and taking all of my dad's paint and getting paint wherever I could. And, I started graffitiing every night. And then my neighbor had a big wall by his house, probably like 10 feet high by like 40 feet long. And I used to stay up all night painting that. And one night I stayed up till like 2 or 3 in the morning, and I had to be at school. So I walked to school, and my first period class was science. And they were talking about atoms and splitting atoms. And I'm asleep on my desk, and he had me sitting at the front because I would always be asleep. My teacher, Mr. Scott. And he walks over and he sees I'm asleep. And this is what everybody tells me, that he walks over, snuck over to me. And he's like, what happens when you split atoms? And he goes, you get atom bombs. And he slammed the book on the desk and woke me up. And everybody laughed and called me Atom Bomb. So it's stuck in Abomb, the artist from 7th grade.
Shout out to Mr.
Scott.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then that was the birth of
that was artistry. It. Abomb, the artist, right there.
Wow.
So I used to be Atom Bomb, then kind of everybody else. And then it was just Bomb for a while. But then when I was on tour, road managing, we couldn't say Bomb in the airport. So everybody would be calling me Bomb. And they're turning around looking all crazy. So yeah. It's Abomb now.
So growing up, because, sometimes people are like, okay, graffiti, you don't want it, in the streets and clean up the graffiti, but you took such a artistic form to it. Did you ever get in trouble for doing graffiti, or was it always based on like a project, a mural or something at home? Nah,
it was just like, my dad was military dude, so I didn't like to get in trouble, but he was just like, do where you got permission, because if one, they're not going to take it down, and 2, paint positive images. So I was never really a big, like you see graffiti letters and a lot of people that with their names and different sayings, and they use the big lettering platform. But I've always been character driven. So I've always creating characters and positive images that people, we'll just leave it there. It's not saying anything bad. It doesn't say, we can't not understand what it's saying, because a lot of the graffiti is hard to read, so people don't like it. Right. So I was just always just very character driven. So I would just go and do pieces where, like, my buddies, hey man, there's this wall in front of my house. I don't think anybody would mind if you did it. So I would do things where they would let it run, so it'd stay there for a while. And so that's what majority of my work is now, is just still positive imagery and just like a lot of bright colors and just places where you could see it, but people are going to leave it there.
Where can people drive around here in the Valley and see your work?
Man, there's so few now. It's like right now I'm over at Just Blaze on 10th Street and Camelback. There, it's like 19 by 40. It's a big piece we did out there. It's, celebrating the Chicano cruising culture. There, I did some other stuff for Katera Interiors there on Osborne and 7th Street. And I've done stuff all over, but it's like they buff it. You get a certain time of run, and then they have another artist come in and go over it. So, I've had stuff next to Carly's Bistro. I've had stuff downtown, so, and all through the South Side, I had some stuff. And they, little by little, they all get covered. So it's just wherever you can. But it's good because it gives other artists an opportunity to get up. And that's cool when you get to do a piece first there. And then all of a sudden they allow people to do stuff there. So it's a process, but, I would love to keep everything up.
Yeah.
But
I saw your Selena on your Instagram. I'm gonna need that. I'm gonna need that. That's so beautiful.
Yeah, that's always a big deal. It's like when the Dia de los Muertos paintings and stuff I do, that was something that, I've always been, since I've known Lalo, he's always been a real good guy, and I've always loved his take on, his characters that he does, and I didn't want to do anything like that, near that, but I kept getting, my wife and my tias, do me this, do me that, and so I just started painting them one day, and then I don't, everybody gets inspired by the artist, and that's the name of the game, that's why we create, to inspire other people, and Lala was a big part of that for me, because it was like, I had jumped out of the art scene to raise my kids, and just to be, more, have my job and take care of all my bills and make sure I was paying my child support and doing everything I had to do back in the day. And then when I got back into it, he was the first artist I really got to like, wow, he was getting up, he was doing it, he was downtown, and it was really something that made me want to get back into the art scene. And then I got to see him and we talked, and he was super humble and kind of gave me some direction, and we just talked about things. And just to see, he was just, without him telling me or inspiring me vocally, just his movements and the way he was, and just, it was all about the art, and it's good, and it just made me feel good. Like, this is what I want to do. It made me happy to want to paint.
Yeah. Well, another form of art for you is music as well. You had a rap group back in the day, the Boondocks. So tell me a little bit about that experience, what it was like.
Yeah, that was crazy. It was just really weird how it all transpired, but it was something that started with a good friend of mine in high school. He was into music production, and he was more on the management side. He was really good at managing like other groups, and it was just something we did locally. And then out on his senior year, after he graduated, he was president of Carl Hayden High School, and he graduated and he moved to Atlanta. And then he, like 2 weeks later, he calls me, "Hey man, you got to get down here. You got to check this out." I'm like, what are you doing, man? I'm working with this group, man. These guys they're pretty badass. We're going to make some music, but we want to, let's me and you do an album. I'm like, cause he knew I had rapped, and this hip hop was like, I'm a break dancer, I'm a graffiti artist, and now I'm a rapper, and all the facets. You want to do it all. So we got there, and it winded up being tag team. That whoop, there it is. Yes. So we were living with those guys, like kind of in the same areas, and, working with them and recording at their studios. And, we were in the video. I didn't make the cut of the video, but my buddy did. So we're at the video shoot. I was like 17, 18. And so it was just so young being in that. And then we took that, we recorded a couple songs there. We got to work with a bunch of different artists in Atlanta coming up. We actually were there for the beginning of Outkast, and seeing Jermaine Dupri and being in those scenarios, because we were in that mix of people. And then we signed a deal with Raging Bull Records in LA. So we went to LA, we lived in the marina for a little while, and we did a bunch of different songs, and we actually got to record with a bunch of great artists. I got 2 songs with Be Real from Cypress Hill. We did one with Mac 10. I'm actually in the West Side Connection video with what is it? I can't remember. There's another rapper. It's called Lights Out was the song. So we were there doing that, and we got to record in Parliament Funkadelic studio that was owned by Fred Durst, where all the walls were like pink furry walls, and just the records all over, all the platinum plaques, and Chill from Compton's Most Wanted. We did a song with Kid Frost. I actually wasn't there when we did that song. He came in, did it, and I came and did my part. We just did a bunch of different things, and the deal was a distribution deal, so we didn't realize that the label was shipping our records and selling them overseas. So we didn't know about that. We were just kind of like, that's record industry. There's always kind of something shady in the background. So they were taking all overseas stuff, and we were like, why aren't we getting, we're paying you all this money. Why aren't we getting any kind of, things going on in the States? And they didn't tell us. Well, we're out there. And we didn't find out from later is my buddy's cousin came from Germany. He was all over. I was like, oh man,
I was gonna say, did you have some fans
so there was
there?
Some fans out there. So it was a really big deal out there. So, we took it for what it was, but it was a great lesson. And then, I just got into, music management and just knowing how to record and dealing with artists. And then in '98, we actually brought out Cool G Rap, and we produced his Roots of Evil album. So we did a Cool G Rap's album. We moved him out here, and he finished the album. Then he went back to New York, and it was just, kind of the next thing, got him another deal, and list goes on. So it's just been a great experience just to meet all the people. And, it's weird because it's like, I'm born and raised hustler. You know what I mean? It was one of the things that I really got out of touch with. When I moved to Atlanta, my mom was happy because she was kind of, the area we grew up was really gang-related, gang violence. I had friends in jail, friends dead. They shot up my house a few times just by being affiliated. And, just, you're not trying to be that, but you're in that neighborhood. So when I left, she was really happy with that. And then when I got back, I found out like more of my friends have died. So I really got upset with the Hispanic culture and the gang violence and everything else that was. And I just kind of stepped away from it all. And I stayed in the music industry. I tried to stay in LA. I tried to stay in other areas where I didn't have to deal with it. And it wasn't only till recently I hooked up with my buddy Tony Herrera and his brothers Kenny and Michael, and they do the car shows in Phoenix. They do the Arizona Super Shows, so they knew I do logistics and did some stuff with that. So I started helping them with that, and being involved in that and seeing the culture and all those old gangbangers and all the things that we didn't like about it, everybody grew up and kind of we know how to police ourselves now. So it was really a good thing for me. I really embraced the culture a lot more, and it helped me to, you know, relate to a lot of the things that I didn't understand growing up, you know, with the way things were ran, and you got the neighborhood boundaries and all that stuff. But I always knew somebody from everybody. So I was never really from one place. I had friends everywhere because I was always running around graffitiing all the different walls, and I couldn't graffiti in one neighborhood unless I got some little clearance from somebody. Yeah, you're cool. Yeah, I got the okay. Yes. You know, that's what it is people have respect, you know, for that kind of thing. When you ask permission, you know, I mean, it's good. And it's a lot of times that's something we need to teach these younger kids, is to respect the process of, you know, just asking permission. That's all it is. It's just, you know, you ain't got to, you know, bow down to anybody, but it's just the respect of, you know, hey, you're in somebody's neighborhood. You know, just like when I go to LA, I know people I check in with, hey, I'm gonna be in LA, bro. We good? You're like, yeah. So things like that. But it helped me get in touch, and it got me, you know, back to wanting a lowrider. And so I've had a few, 3 or 4 now that I have built and sold, and I got my truck now. And it all came around when I did the State 48 collab, because that was me embracing the culture fully to say, hey, this is what I think about the culture. It's all these things that mean this to me. And it all started from hip hop. You know, so
let's get into how this collaboration came to life. What's the backstory on that with State 48?
Oh, it was just, I've been seeing the designs, and, you know, I've told Nicholas, I was like, I've always been intrigued by the designs, how you can be in a, you know, I worked in the clothing industry for 20 years and designed for silk screening and knowing the process. You got to do it all. And so we were talking about it, and I was like, man, I want to do my own version of this. Like, I didn't know the process. I knew about State 48. I just didn't know what the whole process was to get anything done with them. I was just like, you know, I got to do my version. It's like, I don't know if they have any Chicanos working over there that would ever do this. So let me just put it together. And it's something I struggled with, because I was like, man, it's not easy. I started, and it was like, the first thing I had was the tire. You see the tire with the wheel on the front. That was the first thing. Oh, there's my O. You know what I mean? And it was just like, okay, I can go from there. And I started putting things together. And I've got, like I said, 20 years of things I've created. So I've always just, like, I was going through stuff, and as I'm looking at your shirt, I'm like, oh, the Felix, and these roses and stuff. So I did some stuff for Little Rob, the hip hop artist, and he's a Chicano rapper. And I had like stuff that I drew on his album cover that I used, and like all these little elements that I had. And I sat there and I was like, you know what, don't rush it. It'll fall into place. But it literally took me about a week to really put it together, what I wanted to do. And then I started illustrating it, and then the illustration it's tedious, but the best thing about it is that you can go in there and zoom in and get the detail you want. But that's where knowing how to design for silk screening comes in, because you can know how to trap your images and what's going to print out on silk screening opposed to a DTG print. So there's all these different aspects of it. So when I did finally get it, I put it out there and I sent it to a couple of my boys, and it was kind of a snowball effect. And everybody's like, all of a sudden, tagging Mike, you know what I mean, tagging State 48. I'm like, oh. So it was just like boom, 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 boom. It was like one after another. I think I got over like 150 comments on it, and just people like, yeah, Mike, you need to get with this. And everybody who was kind of influential in these different communities started reaching out. And then next thing you know, I got a DM, and I was like, let's roll, let's do it. He goes, man, I love the design. And Nicholas hit me up, and we started talking about it, and just it worked out perfectly. It's all timing. Like I said, I just keep doing what I do, and then if it's meant to be, it'll happen. The universe works as all the ways out. Yeah,
always.
Yeah, for sure.
So you touched on it a little bit, but you know, what does it mean to you now where you're at, you know, in your profession, doing all these different things, but coming together at this place where you're able to showcase the Chicano community and the Latino community here in Arizona by your artwork?
It's just been, like I said, it's been a long road, just dealing with, you know, not wanting to, you know, lift that culture up because of the negativity of my friends dying and the gang banging and all the, you know, dysfunction we had growing up. But now it's just like, I see it as a big, you know, opportunity to show love. And that's what it is. It's like, we all can relate through these things, you know, the music, the cars, you know what I mean? Just the dressing, the, you know, just the little culture, the women, oh my God, I think the women is the biggest part. They're so influential. When you go to these car shows and, you know, how, you know, they, like the mothers that are there with their children, raising them to be into these things and, you know, having that kind of passion for, you know, I got girlfriends of mine that their husbands are in jail, you know what I mean? And you see them and they're still out there holding it down, keeping that love alive for them and, you know, showing it. So it's just, it's all about love. I think it's always been that thing. It's just like, I got the bandana on there, like on all the little things, the roses, the kind of with the teardrops and everything else that kind of symbolize something. So when you look at it, the switches from the hydraulics and the cars and everything else is like that I put on the shirt. That was something that I took a little bit of time for me to kind of like, okay, how is somebody going to feel when they see this?
Right.
So it was just a long time coming, but it's always been for the culture. And it's just, I guess it all starts out of love because it took a lot of hate to get me where I am to where I love the culture now.
No, the details are amazing. And we can all kind of relate to something on this shirt.
That's what it is. And so like everybody can kind of say, bro, I saw that. Like even Nicholas, when he saw the switch, he's like, that's my favorite thing. He goes, how did you know to fit that there? And we talked about that for a while. So it was pretty cool.
So what did it mean to you just to have them reach out to you and say, hey, because I think that's so wonderful in terms of being a brand, right? And being, people know who State 48 is walking around, but to have that representation is so important. So
I think it was very important for me. I think it was, you know, it really was like, it kind of got overwhelming for a second. I was like, oh man, I was just doing what I love. But that's the process. When you do something that you love and you get these opportunities to work with somebody like State 48, it's awesome what they're already doing. And for them to just, you know, recognize what I was doing and embrace the culture with us. And kind of like when we did the car show with you guys, it was amazing because it's just like, you know, hey, what do you want for the show? It's like, oh, we'll just do this and do that. And then me having the history with the show, we kind of got a nice space and it all worked out perfectly. But it's been great. You know what I mean? The response has been great. I've gained a ton of more fans, people who were fans of State 48 now see my work. And, you know, it's a snowball effect. I mean, getting, you know, a lot of recognition and people reaching out and just, even if it's just well wishers, and that's great too, because it's, you know, just the recognition with, you know, working with Mike being such a great guy and, you know, what he does for the community. And, you know, we participated. I went to the poker tournament, you know what I mean? Yes. Like once I get involved with somebody, I'm all in, you know what I mean? If we're going to work together, we're going to work together. And that's what it is. I support people who have great causes. And you know, that's one of the things that I liked about State 48 when I did my research. It was awesome.
Definitely family right here.
Yeah, for sure.
Now let's backtrack a little bit because we're going through this journey of yours, artwork, starting at such a young age to the music career, to designing T-shirts and all of that. Through the midst of your career and the twists and the turns was a tragic eye injury that you suffered. And as an artist, I can imagine that experience to be pretty traumatizing, to say the least.
Oh yeah, it was in so many ways that, but it was all like, you know, like I said, the universe works it out. You don't ever know when it's going to happen. But I had quit the music industry. I had been on tour and I had been on just doing road management, and I was never home. So I was always in another city doing what I was doing. And my son was born, and my ex was like, you're never home. You need to come be a man for your family. And this is, and it bothered me for a while because that's how they raised me. My parents were like, oh, I did not want to have a child out of wedlock. You know, my grandma's, my mom worked for the church for 30 years. So it's just like, I didn't, you know, want to be that guy. So I just say, you know what, I'm going to dedicate myself to my family. And I just went, I got a job the first place I could. And it was at a glass company. It was my ex-wife's friend, husband who owned the company, so he wanted to give me a job. I started at the bottom, and I was working there for, you know, a few years. And as I was working, I was making money, and I was taking care of my family, and everybody was happy. And that's what my thing was. I wanted to make everybody else happy. My mom and dad were happy. I was working that regular 9 to 5. My son was being fed. My ex-wife was paying the bills with my money and doing everything we had to do. So it was all working out. And then I just felt this like, oh my gosh, I'm not using my talent. What's wrong with me? Yeah. You know what I mean? I'm not doing music no more. I'm not doing art. I'm not doing nothing. This is kind of, something's wrong. I couldn't figure it out, and had been going through it, you know, emotionally, just trying to do, what is it? Why am I not using it? Should I start? Should I get back into it? And I was really missing it because I hadn't done it in so long. And then, you know, just so many different things that came about working at that company. And there's like, I was doing regular commercial installation and for like, you know, 3-4 story buildings. And then one day we got a call, we had a monsoon storm, and there was so much work. They were like, well, we got to go do it. So we got a call. I got a call to change an Arcadia door, and the Arcadia door was, you know, has the 2 interlocking channels to keep the air out. So I took it apart, put the new glass in, and then I went to put the door back on and it didn't shut correctly, but I didn't know that. So I just left, and the lady, my boss, calls me back, and he's like, hey, he's pissed off. He's like cussing me out. Hey, you need to go back and do this job, and you should have did it right the first time. And my ex was going out of town with their girlfriends. I had to go pick up my son before a certain time. So I was stressing. I was really stressing about, the music, the art, all these things in my life were kind of like in one big circle at the time. So I get back over. This is before cell phones and everything. We were even on walkie-talkie still for the job.
Yeah.
And I get back over there, and the lady of the house left her son in charge. Like, hey, you got to fix this. I'll be back. And the son was like this big old football player, and he's just a big dude. And he's just like, yeah, man, I need to fix this, and kind of being a jerk. So everybody was coming down on me. My ex-wife at the time, you need to hurry up, come pick your son up. My boss is being a jerk. I was not focused. I had all these things going on. So I take the door off again, put it on the side, and I see what the problem is. And I get my screwdriver out, and I'm opening this channel slowly, and it's coming open. But then towards the end, it was like a lot of pressure. So I'm using it, and I'm facing it away from my face. And whatever happened, it's just like I hit it with my hand a few times, and it popped out, and it was going the opposite direction, but it's like the reaction came back, boom, and it went straight through my left eye. And there was no blood. It was just like a almost like a fart sound, and that was it. It was my eye collapsing, and all the fluid came and just flew all over my arm. And I started screaming. I'm like, damn it. Like, what? And then the guy who was at the house, the big football player guy, he starts running around panicking. What do I do? What do I do? I said, call 911. I said, get 911 out of here. So they got 911 on the phone. They handed me the phone. He goes, what happened? I stabbed my eye with a screwdriver. He goes, I want you to lay down, close your eyes, don't move till we get there. And it was like, but the second that I felt that screwdriver go through my eye, I swear on everything that I saw everything I couldn't do with two eyes no more. Like my spray painting, my art, my can control, nothing. So I was like, it was just a weird situation. So the paramedics arrive, all this chaos is going on. Then finally the guy gets over me. He's like, hey, he goes, I'm going to put my hand over your good eye, which is the good eye. And I'm like, Shorty goes, all right. And the count of 3, I want you to open your eye. And gets his big old flashlight out, and he has it in my eye, and he goes, open your other eye. And I open, he goes, can you see anything? And I go, nope. And then he moves his hand, and this was so bright that he was blinding me on this side. So it was like, oh man, I'm blind in my left eye. So I'm like, holy smokes, man, I'm just freaking out. And then they give me the ambulance. Luckily, I'm 2 miles away from the top eye institute in the nation. So Arrowhead Eye Center. So it was just like that instant, everything changed. My ex-wife didn't go to California. She was at the hospital. We ended up having 2 more kids. The owner of the company was the first guy there at the hospital from the company. My best friend to this day, and it's just it just worked everything out. So here's where it gets crazy.
Crazy.
That's not even the crazy part. So this is what's crazy. So they clean me up, they put me out, and they clean up all the stitches. They wanted to give me like a bunch of rough stitches just to hold my eye in place. And so they had to go back and clean it out, and they had to put a gas bubble in my eye. So this is like 2 weeks later. And so because the screwdriver went through the front of my eye and it hit the muscle in the back of my eye, if it would have went up or down, I would have been dead, they said, because the screwdriver was like 12 inches long. But because it hit the muscle pushed it back out. So I have stitches in the back of my eye. So I had 12 stitches in the back of my eye. After they cleaned it up, I had 162 in the front of my eye. But during the process, this is what went down. This is what I tell when I used to tell on tour to calm everybody down. I go in there and they're like, hey, we're going to do this procedure. We need to clean up your eye. We're going to insert this gas bubble so it holds the stitches in place, and you're going to have to, manage your control of your head for them. I was like, oh, I didn't understand what was going on. So I go, all right. So they give me the anesthesia, and I wake up, and they got me strapped at my ankles, my knees, my thighs, my waist, my hands, my wrists, my elbows, all the way up to my chin, my neck, my forehead, to keep me strapped to this table, because you have to be awake during the surgery. They didn't tell me.
Oh, hell no.
So as I'm laying on the table, they want to start the procedure. So they have one section where my left eye, my bad eye, is stapled to my face so they can do the surgery. And they have my right eye covered. So as my right eye is covered, I can see shadows and everything. So as they were beginning the procedure, they go, all right, you could hear about 6 doctors in there, 2 anesthesiologists, 3 surgeons and 2 other medical assistants. And there's a TV on, a radio on, everybody's talking. It's like everybody's just working a regular day for them.
Right.
So he reaches over and he's like, hey, we're going to start the procedure. Just, relax. So, all right. So as he reaches over and he starts cutting my eye open, I could feel everything. No. And I start screaming on the table. I'm like, I could feel that. What's going on? And he's like, oh, whoa, what? He goes, yeah, I can feel you cutting in my eye.
No.
He's like, yeah. So it's like, he's like, all of a sudden the room got quiet. TV's turned off, radio's turned off. There's a big huddle like that. And all of a sudden, this is going to hurt. And I feel the anesthesiologist, the lady, she was a big lady too, when I remember seeing her, reach over and I just feel her cold hands grab my forehead with her thumbs on my forehead and press down on me. And I see this needle coming at me, like a shadow of a needle coming at me, like Twilight Zone, slow motion. He puts it through the front of my eye and I'm screaming, and he puts it through the back of my eye into my eye muscle, and he pumps it and my whole face just gets cold. And then he's like, what? Yeah. And I'm screaming the whole time. And then the lady gets off me. The doctor jumps off and he goes, can you feel this? I'm like, no. And he goes, all right. TV went back on, radio went back on. Everybody's chatting again. And then he goes, think of something for 3 hours.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So it was sports highlights for 3 hours. And then after that, I get done. And, that was the first
chills.
Yeah.
Right.
That was crazy. It was a crazy experience. But the crazy part was, this is what it all leads to. So, as after the surgery, they released me and said, hey, you have a gas bubble in your eye. You need to keep your head at a 90-degree angle looking down for 3 months.
What?
You have to sleep on your face. You have to look down all the time because the gravity of that gas bubble, it's in place to hold the stitches back there. You have 12 stitches in the back of your eye.
How bizarre.
It was crazy. So I'm sitting at home. I had my ex and I had broke up, so I had a place by myself, and I was living by myself, and all I could do all day was I'm playing cards. And then my buddy, Rick Flores, rest in peace, he was an old graffiti writer too, kind of my mentor. He just shows up, brought me a stack of papers, stack of pencils. Wow. He goes, here you go, bro. And that was it. And that's all I did for 3 months was draw. And I had sketched the first thing I had got, my buddy goes, hey, I need this logo for this guy. And the dude loved it, bought it. And I go, why am I not doing this?
Wow.
And so ever since then, I'm like, I got to use my talent every day for something. And that's just how, the universe, God works, man. It's just like to have that kind of tragedy happen to you, and then to get some of it out of it, to where now I'm a one-eyed artist that, I got some vision now after I had a cornea transplant, but it's still, there's no lens. So everything's still, the depth perception's off, but it all led to that. So it's like, that put me in the perspective, like, I got to use my talent. I'm using my talent all the time. So that's, every day I'm doing something with it. Sketching. I got my 10-year-old son, he has autism. So he wants to draw all day long. He can draw 8 hours a day. So him and I just draw. We do stuff all the time. And all my kids, though, they were all like that. They would always go help me do murals or whatever it was growing up. So that was all it. That was the biggest change in my life, was that.
Talk about like perception change.
Literally
A perception change for you. How did that change the way that you were able to create with?
It changed a lot. And like, if you see a lot of my style now, it's like, I don't do a lot of 3-dimensional things. I do in some sense, but a lot of my stuff is 2D. It's like, because I'm creating in that form. Yeah, I can do stuff that's 3D, but I enjoy doing it this way because it just helps my perspective. The way I do my shading, the way I choose my colors, and the way I, my technique to approach different styles of art. I do several different mediums. I do canvas, I do acrylics, I do, large scale murals, I do smaller stuff, I do, metal structures. I'm actually doing a piece for the Valley Metro Light Rail project along Central Avenue, where all the cruising is going to go.
Wow.
That's been in the mix for the last 4 years. So I'm almost complete with that. And that's all steel sculpture.
Wow.
So
you talk about having your kids around you. How do you use, and I'm sure impacting many others in the midst of this, how do you use that story to inspire others, your kids or anyone, a platform like this, to be able to share that with?
That's what it is. It's like, you got to be able to recognize what's going on. My kids don't get it. They're like, my dad's got one eye. He's an artist. They're over it. They've been, because everybody's always so in awe by it when we tell the story, and them growing up around, like, what happened? And they want to hear the story. And so they're just, I'm over it.
Right.
But as far as other guys, it's like other people. And like, I've had people who, had broken arms, like, oh man, I'm never going to be able to do this again. Like, geez, it's just some minor setbacks. Like, you're gotta make something out of nothing. There's got to be a good outlook on anything in life, and that's what it is. Just staying positive and just recognizing, hey, this happened. Everything happens for a reason. So that happened for a reason for me. It really did. Like,
absolutely.
Yeah, it was amazing.
And what are you doing now just to push your platform? I know you have a fund, is that correct, or a foundation that you're starting back up? Yeah,
I have a nonprofit organization called Peace of Mind Foundation, and we help people bury their children. So it's just something that nobody wants to talk about, you know. And it was just something that I was working for an ad agency, you know, in 2005, and we had just had huge monsoons, and I went home early, and I was watching the news, and there was a gentleman on here who was telling a story about how he lost his son in this flash flood. And then I remember an hour later seeing him on another channel, and then another channel, and they're like, man, this guy is reliving this experience. This is horrible. Why is it? And it's all to get the funds he needed to help bury his child. And I'm like, why isn't there something? But in taking it back, it's like I grew up in that neighborhood where it was gang violence and people dying, and we had to, you know, go to car washes and help. Yeah. There was some horrible incidences where parents had to bury their children together that died at the same time because they couldn't afford 2 caskets. So it was just always one of those things. And my buddy Joey was murdered, and, you know, having to see his family go through that and the car washes and all this stuff. And it's just like, people want to know, oh, like, stop asking, like, don't make them relive that experience. So like, that's where we come in. Like, the goal is, like, I have these numbers in my head. My goal is $10 million. I can help 1,000 families with full burials. But once we open up those doors, the floodgates, you don't want to think about it. People don't want to think about it, but it's just like, it's out there. People are, you know, having, you know, the loss of a child and dealing with it every day. Somebody's dealing with it. And if you can just say, hey, we're going to take care of that part of it, instead of them having to deal with the loss of a child, and then, oh, all of a sudden, here's the bill. Right. You know what I mean? And now you're stressed out over that as well. So you're talking about going through different emotions and having all that, you know, that tragedy. And like, I just want to be able to write the check. So, you know, that's the goal, to get to that point where I can just write the check, and we'll deal directly with funeral homes. So we're not giving any finances to anyone directly. We just take the information, who are you using, and we just go directly to them. So, hey, okay, that's done. Go start the healing process. And that's what we want to create. We want to create that. And that's what we've been working on for the last, you know, 5 years, you know, with COVID and everything else, kind of put a stop to what we were doing, and we all had our lives, because me and my 2 partners in it, it was my idea, but I got, you know, 2 other co-founders that help us get the 501c3 status and our tax exempt status done, and getting it done correctly to where we can actually make a dent in what we're trying to do. So what we just want to do now is just raise funds until we get to that a high enough level to where we can start donating to make a difference. So it's not just, hey, well, we can help with $250. No, we want to be able to help a lot of it. The goal is to take care of it completely, and maybe in the future own the funeral homes ourselves, so we can just, hey, it's all there for you guys. Wow. And that's the goal for that, you know. Yeah, that's the way to use your platform. That's amazing. Yeah, that's what it is. It's help others. Yeah, like your shirt says. Yeah, help others. That's what we got to do. At what point did your artwork become beyond just something for you to express yourself, something for you to do as you were recovering from your eye injury? When did it become a business for you that's now a driving force in your life? You know, is since I started, when I first started really doing computer illustrations, like, graffiti was one thing. And it's, when you look at graffiti from a distance, it looks good from afar, but it's far from good. Like, when you get up on it, you'll see the drips, you'll see all the little, and you're working on different surfaces. You know, you're not going to have a perfectly straight canvas. You're dealing with brick, stucco, whatever, wood, and it's not perfect. So when I got into, you know, designing and using my vector programs, I work with a program called CorelDRAW, and that's, you know, kind of t-shirt industry stuff. So I started learning how to design for t-shirts, and then I went to some trade shows, met Tupac, you know, met a bunch of, you know, Christian Asoy, all these old school guys that I, you know, grew up, you know, idolizing, and seeing them, and just, you know, hey man, there's money in this. And so we developed a brand called Bomb and Lucky. And our first sale was to a company in Okinawa. They bought like 25 grand worth of stuff. And I'm like, oh, wow. This is crazy. This is, you know, this is what I want to do. And it was, you know, ever since then, it's like, man, I love going to the trade shows, seeing what's going on, what's new. You know, I mean, I worked with a company out here. My buddy and I, at the time, we developed it together. It was called Bobby Fresh, and it was a sneaker brand. And we sneaker tees, and we did a ton of them. And we actually there was a Complex magazine did an article on the top 30 t-shirt designs for sneakers, and I think we had 11 of them.
Oh, wow.
And they were all my designs. So it was just like, yeah, and just seeing that. And then I actually had an opportunity to work, do a project with Jordan Brand. And, you know, you submit stuff, but it's just, there's so many legalities, so you got to jump through hoops. But that was through that as well. And just working with, you know, Funk Master Flex and other people who are in those industries. And, you know, you see it. There's that showed me that there's opportunity with my art. Yes. And that's what it was, just design.
And now the Phoenix Suns.
Yeah, now the Phoenix Suns.
Called
that was
up.
awesome.
How did that come to life?
Oh man, Chelsea hit me up. She had been reaching out to me like, hey, and we just couldn't. The timing was off. She's like, hey, can you come paint? I was like, yeah, sounds good. Oh, I can't make that day. Or hey, you want to do this? I'm like, I'm busy. You know. So finally, she came to me. She's like, hey, I got a t-shirt design. I want to get it done. I need it in 2 days. And I looked at my calendar and I looked at my wife sitting on the couch. She's like, 2 days. And I winded up finishing it that night and just got it done, sent it back. And like the next day I sent it back to make it look like it took me a little longer. But then
now they know.
Yeah, now they know. But that's what it is. You're not paying for my time. You're paying for the years I've developed to get it done that
now
quickly.
You can.
Yeah. And that's what all artists think that way.
So what's the inspiration behind the shirt?
You know, just one, it was like, I know Devin Booker's got a 59 Impala. So that's why I put the 59 on there. And then I've always been a Gorillas fan, like the Phoenix Suns fan. The Gorilla was always a badass to me. Like, you know what I mean? Just going to games growing up and just seeing how cool it was to, like, that's what you're like, man, this guy's jumping around the arena. He's controlling the emotions of everybody. And that was a big deal. I had to have the Gorilla in there. And then just, you know, what they asked me to do, like, oh, we want this and want that. They give you the stipulations. Got to have this. These are the colors. And they, you know, gave me a color palette and I worked with that. And a lot of my stuff I try to do, like, because in the printing process, the more colors, the more money, you know, the more time and everything else. So I always try to minimize my color, but this is the sun. So they were like, go all in. So I was like, all right, cool. So I got to do something with all these colors and, you know, the new team colors as well. So it was really cool working with them. You know, I mean, the response was great. You know, everything was just like so professional. Like they got it done quickly. I even, Chelsea took the photos that we did for all the social media stuff. So it was just great. She's really good to work with, and she knows her stuff too. She's a sneakerhead like me, so I'm wearing my Doc Martin work boots now. Like, but wait, not right now. I got my Jordans in the truck. I just got to go back to another site. I wasn't gonna put them on, but yeah, it was really good to work with them. You know what I mean? And just the response from the community after that was really awesome. Like, you know, they posted on their social media, and I got a great response from fans and people.
It's amazing.
Yeah, people from other cities.
Representation.
Yeah, exactly. I got buddies who live in New York and like Miami and Detroit, and they saw the post and be like, "Yo, what you doing over there in Phoenix, bro? I see you." So yeah, they're like, "Oh man, good." And it's just like I don't think about it all. It's a big deal, but I was just like, because it's my hometown team, but I was just like, man, this is awesome. It kicked in and I got a little, like, this is great.
Yeah. So people can purchase the shirts now in the team shop. Is that correct, or online?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, he actually got me into a concert a couple weeks ago when it first released. I went and bought some, and then the show was sold out. And the guy, I don't want to get nobody in trouble, but one of the guys there helped me out, and I was wearing one of the t-shirts. He goes, yo, because I walked up and asked, I was like, yo, man, was there any tickets?
Which concert?
Then I'm going to give my guy up.
But we got the underground podcast here.
Exactly. It was a Sacred Soul show. So yeah, over at Valley Bar. So it was just like, and he's like, yo, man, he goes, I ain't got no more tickets, sold out. Like kind of being a jerk. And I'm like, oh man, I go, all right, well, I'm gonna go down to the bar and get a drink, whatever. And he saw the shirt. He goes, yo, that's that new Sun shirt. He goes, yeah. And I go, I got a XXX in the truck for you if you want one. And he's like, yeah, and he came back, got me some wristbands, and I gave him a shirt. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, and it kept working for me, so it's still working for me.
That's so cool. Well, I cannot wait to get that shirt. And of course, this shirt, you can rock it at state48.com. You can find it in red and black now, which is huge. Just we have that variety too, and just have that platform for you. It's awesome. I love seeing your
awesome. I love going to the site, and I love going to the stores. Like when I'll go down to Churchill and I'll be at the State 48 store, and whoever's working there will recognize me, and then I'll start having a conversation with them, and people walk by, oh, what's up? And you know what I mean? I even signed some shirts there. People went and bought shirts and had me sign them while I was there for their kids. I should
have you sign my shirt.
Let's do it.
All right, after the pod.
Yeah, there you go.
And now you're on our podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
It was so fun hearing your journey. Yes, it was a lot of fun.
I appreciate it.
Tell your fans.
I will. Everybody check it out. State48.com.
On YouTube.
On YouTube.
Apple Podcasts. And Spotify.
Oh, Spotify as well. So there you go. And check out abombtheartist.com.
There we go.
You got it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll see you next week, guys.